Recently, there's been an awful lot of discussions regarding the different genomes of black and white, or a range of colored people, yellow, Asians, obviously Latinos, Latin Americans, African Americans, and Asian and Africans. Now, it's been proven now through research by all the scientific teams globally what specifies what's a Homo sapien and what is a Neanderthal. The surprising results is as such. Watch the video.
Neanderthal DNA. And furthermore, the only people group that doesn't have any Neanderthal DNA are the descendants of Africans. So why is it that Asians and Europeans have Neanderthal DNA, and the people that have been treated the least humane and even called non-human have the most human DNA? What could they have been doing to get this Neanderthal DNA? Asian and Europeans have Neanderthal DNA because their ancestors interbred with Neanderthals tens of thousands of years ago. Guess it turns out Fuzzy Wuzzy was a colonizer.
Like, Neanderthals didn't evolve into humans. Neanderthals were a completely separate subspecies of human that were around at the same time as humans, and they had sex and made other humans. And did you know that even today, most people in the world can have up to 5% Neanderthal genes, like in their DNA sequencing? Like, it's literally come down from the past, which is like pretty cool. So we've got Neanderthals, which obviously is the kind of most famous one, but everything that we kind of knew about the Neanderthals, it's kind of wrong, and they are so much more complex, intelligent, and just pretty much cooler than we ever really gave them credit for. That whole idea of them being like stupid cavemen, kind of in fact the opposite. I'll get more onto that in a moment.
This commenter asked, Europeans have Neanderthal genes. Africans do not have Neanderthal genes. If everybody came from Africa, how would that be possible? To understand how this all makes perfect sense, you first have to understand where the different human species were living during the time period. Our species, we were evolving in Africa. The Neanderthals, they were evolving up in Europe and Western Asia, and then the Denisovans, they were out here in East Asia. Between 55 and 40,000 years ago, as our species was expanding out of Africa, some of those sapiens, they actually interbred with Neanderthals. But the key thing is that that hybridization happened after the split between the group that would go into that out of Africa sapiens population and then the group today that we have in Africa. Some experts actually think that that hybridization may have occurred in the Zagros Mountains. Regardless, it happened out of Africa, and if you look up here, you'll see that hybridization seems to be pretty common with ancient humans. So why is Neanderthal DNA more common outside of Africa than inside of Africa? Because the interbreeding happened outside of Africa. However, there is some Neanderthal DNA in Africa today because historically populations, it's not a one-way street. Populations have moved back into Africa. While those back migrations have likely been happening for a really long time, genetic evidence suggests some of the more recent waves over the last 10,000 years really are most responsible for that Neanderthal DNA being brought back in. When that 2023 paper that looked into this was published, they noticed some really interesting things. One, there was actually way more ancient hybridization between sapiens and Neanderthals happening sometime around 250,000 years ago. That sapiens population seems to have been either absorbed by the Neanderthal population or they went locally extinct. Here is where you see that more recent hybridization with the group that had left Africa, and then here is where you see some of it being brought back into Africa. But if you notice, there are still populations in Africa that do not have any of that Neanderthal admixture. Prior to this 2023 paper being published, we thought all populations in Africa had some evidence of that Neanderthal admixture. Once this was published, they realized that some of that DNA that matched up with the Neanderthals that was found in Africa, it was actually ancient sapiens DNA that had been moved into the Neanderthal population around 250,000 years ago. So they had identified it as Neanderthal DNA, not realizing it was sapiens DNA that had moved into the Neanderthal population, and then by the time our species, we interbred with them more recently, they still had that old sapiens DNA.
If you find any value and or relevant information that's going to assist you, I'd be happy to hear from you. Leave a comment, ring that bell, or subscribe.